Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of BioJacked Radio with your host, Kiefer from DangerouslyHardcore.com. And today we've got Marci Nevin sitting in as special guest once again.
Yay.
Yeah, she won't be so special after a while, but for now, we'll keep calling her special.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hi, everybody.
So, Marci apparently has some questions that she's been racking up. She's our Q&A specialist.
Yeah, these are from a while ago.
You can ask new ones because you said you didn't really like those.
No, I'm looking them over. They're decent. But yeah, these were from like probably 6 weeks ago when I was supposed to be on, and I don't know, something happened and we didn't get around to all these questions. So I would like to get a few of them answered. And I have another question from a DH Facebook fan who I had lunch with a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. How'd that go?
It went really well. We had a great time. A really good meal in downtown Danville. So we had just good conversation. It was Peter, and he's a very nice guy. So we wish that you could have joined us.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But we know that you're busy producing content for all of your fans.
Well, you picked the one day. I'd probably meet with my attorney once every 6 weeks on Saturday for lunch. And you picked that Saturday.
That would happen, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to take a rain check then.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay. After Christmas and all that.
Right. Not too long after Christmas, though.
I know.
So, questions.
Okay, let me read verbatim from the little list that I typed out and printed. I'm such a dork. Okay.
You know, if you want, we could do this the opposite. Instead of facing away from each other, we could face each other if it would make you more comfortable.
Can we do that? It's kind of awkward.
Yeah, we'll let everybody watch this on the camera.
Okay. I like getting your facial reactions.
Oh, great.
Okay, we can still see me. We can still see you. Yes.
Yeah, I might have to adjust the camera a little bit. Whoa, that could have been a disaster.
So I'm going to kind of break these down, start with training questions, go into nutrition questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the Shockwave protocol.
Yeah.
And was it originally intended for Carb Nite?
It was originally intended for Carb Nite.
Okay. So I was doing Carb Nite for probably 6 to 8 weeks, and I did use Shockwave during that time. I loved it. After some conversations with you, I don't think I was doing it properly.
Uh-oh.
Well, the elect reps.
We've got a lot of video on that now.
I know. I'm looking forward to that.
I can actually show some of it to you while you're here.
Oh, that would be helpful. Okay. But anyways, I still liked the design, the setup of the workout. So once I get those elect reps down, I would like to continue with it. But I wanted to know if one was doing carb backloading, how would they modify Shockwave for that? Or are there any changes?
There are changes, and that's one of the things addressed in the new program. It would be, you can get away with some higher volume. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm having some chair difficulties here. So you actually need to play with your diet a little better if you're going to be doing carb backloading with Shockwave. They work great together. You just have to pay more attention to what your carbohydrate loads are.
Can you give an example of that?
Well, not really.
Oh. Well, I mean, what?
So, you just have to, just like anything else, you've got to watch what your body looks like every day. The Shockwave protocol is made to get you in and out of the gym in the shortest amount of time possible, but give you the greatest growth signal possible. And that's why it's ideal for Carb Nite, because you never overstress yourself. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you always want maximum muscle growth stimulation if you're trying to lose body fat. Because as long as your muscles have this constant signal to grow, then when your body gets in a caloric need, it's going to go to your body fat. Mm-hmm. That's why it's ideal for Carb Nite and particularly calorie deprivation. Contest prep, I don't use anything but Shockwave anymore. But then the problem is that carb backloading, everybody's goal is different. It's used by so many people for so many things. It's even used by people who don't work out. So you've just really got to adjust your carbohydrate load to how you're feeling and how you're looking, just like anything else. So you probably can't have a pizza every night like somebody doing 5-3-1.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at was, is it you have to take in less carbs or kind of play with what types of carbs you're eating?
It could be the type too. If you're picking the correct carbs, then it's really just going to all come down to quantity.
Okay.
And that's still not 100%. I mean, I had a guy, which this actually worked out really well, and it's not what I recommend. I don't like doing this, but for some goals it makes sense. A guy I worked with early on, actually he was one of the first people to ever do carb backloading. A good friend of mine, Hadi Malyukich, who's been on this show before. He had a really, really hard time ever getting over 220. So we used Shockwave with carb backloading without limiting his carbs at all. And he got up to 286.
That's a pretty significant difference.
Yeah. No, it took us about a year, but he got up to 286. He was huge. And part of the reason for that was the types of carbs and the amount of carbs he was able to eat. But he did definitely put on some body fat during that time. But that's when we made the switch to Carb Nite. And, I mean, he shredded that body fat in an amazingly short amount of time. Got down to 242, I think, 245. And was just absolutely shredded. I mean, he'd put on like 40 pounds of muscle. Because when we started, I think he was maybe 202.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, so that's one situation where you have a very long-term goal. I mean, I spent a year and 3 months with Hadi, so that was a really long-term goal. It wasn't like, well, I've got a short-term goal. I want to make sure I always look good. He had an endpoint that he wanted, and that's how we used it to do that. Okay.
So when you talk about increasing the volume, where exactly could you increase it? Like on the elect rep sets, could you do more than just one set?
Yeah. So actually, a good way to start to stage them is start a little lighter and like just keep going through those elect sets. So instead of only getting like 5, you might get 6 or 7.
Got it.
It's a good way to increase volume. And another one is just adding more sets.
Right. So you could do one set, rest a little bit, and then do another with 5, 6, 7. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, just increase the volume to 2 or 3 sets. And now you've got a whole nother variable to play with depending on how you feel that day.
Mm-hmm.
The way I would structure those is your weakest body part, aesthetically or strength-wise, those are the ones you would increase the volume on.
Okay.
Everything else, keep it at the shorter level. That way, if you run out of gas by the end of the workout, you just cut out the lagging stuff.
For sure. That makes sense. I'm what I like to call a volume whore, which means
that sounds bad.
I know. Give me as much as you. I mean, I love to do a lot of work in the gym. So if I have a program, I always have somebody writing a workout for me. It's like if they, write 4 sets of 8, Marci's going to want to do 6 sets of 8, So I was just curious if that's okay with Shockwave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you feel good, you're not running out of gas, and after 2 or 3 weeks you don't feel beat down, then that's fine. And even if you do go overboard, that's the nice thing about the program. Back off to the minimum level and do just all like stage 1 or stage 2 exercises. Don't ever go past those, and you'll recover within a week, and you still get to work out.
Okay.
All right, we had a little bit of a delay, but we're back. I don't even remember what we were in the middle of, but it's basically Shockwave training.
Yeah, and I was going to get into training for Carb Nite, actually. So.
Oh, well, first, we have a little experiment that we're going to conduct.
Dun.
Marci has never tried a piece of nicotine gum.
Here it is, my first piece. I'm only going with half.
Yeah, because it's pretty potent. That's 4 milligram piece. So
I'm worried about being a little loopy. So here we go.
Highly recommend it with the other piece of gum.
Yeah, that's not very good.
No, it's not.
Well, no, it's not that bad, actually.
You're okay?
I'm okay. It's more the the rubber consistency that I can hardly chew through.
Yeah.
So excuse me if I'm smacking on camera. But not bad. So waiting for it to kick in.
Yeah, we're waiting to see if Marci gets a little loopy. That's the hope of all of this.
I don't drink. I don't smoke. So this is my one chance.
Yeah, ditto.
No, you don't consume any of that.
I think I've had 2 shots in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Why is that? And okay, shots, but have you had like mixed drinks, beer? No.
No, I mean mostly it just all tastes like crap. I think it tastes horrible, and everybody says, "Oh, well, it's an acquired taste." I'm like, why would I keep imbibing something that tastes like crap? Mm-hmm. Period. It's kind of like, oh, haggis, it's an acquired taste. Yeah, it's sheep stomach stuffed with like crap. Like, I'm not going to keep eating it just because.
Right.
So I just never, even like wine, I love the smell of wine. I think it smells unbelievably good. As soon as I taste it, it ruins it.
I agree. My family, they're huge wine connoisseurs. And, I mean, they drink it every night. You know, they bring it to dinner. It's a huge part of their life, and I can't get into it. And my dad has this theory. He's kind of weird like that. But he has this theory that your taste buds change as you get older. And so he's like, I remember when I was your age, I didn't like wine either. But the older I got, you know, I think my taste buds changed, and I just got acquired to it. But, yeah, I'm not a fan. Now, I do like, and I cannot drink beer. But I do like mixed drinks. So, you know, pina coladas.
Of course, because there's like sugar in them.
Yeah.
It's like Jamba Juice with alcohol.
Well, right. So, yeah, margaritas, pina coladas, all those things are quite tasty.
Yeah, I don't see how you couldn't like those.
Oh, so you would like those, but it's just the straight alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I can't do it.
I enjoy my mental faculties, so I don't in any way want them impaired.
I don't blame you.
Plus, the one time I had a shot was my 21st birthday,
mm-hmm.
and we were at a club, and I literally, because I had driven from Columbus, Ohio to Terre Haute, Indiana, which is, I think, a 5-hour drive. And then that whole day had been busy. I hadn't eaten yet. And we went out for drinks with these girls, and I had one shot. It was my 21st birthday. Like, one shot.
I don't like where this is going.
Yeah, and I just got really dizzy, and I remember it was supposed to be a double date, so I'm on the date with this one girl. I remember being up, there was this stage that had tables, but they didn't have a railing at the edge of it. So I'm sitting at the table, supposed to be on a double date, and I remember leaning back because this girl had come in the door that was apparently pretty hot, at least I thought so in my state, and I kept leaning back, and I never felt myself lose balance. So not only did I fall backwards in the chair, I fell about 2 feet off the stage onto the ground.
Oh.
While noticeably checking out another girl on a double date on my 21st birthday. So it was about as bad as the evening could get.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to drink after that either.
Yeah.
So on my 21st birthday, I was in a sorority at the University of Oregon. And
you were in a sorority? You look like a sorority girl.
Do I?
Actually, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, even Mary's shaking her head in the background.
I'm so like not the typical sorority girl though. I wasn't all rah about it. The reason I joined one in the first place was because I didn't really meet anyone in my dorm, and I needed to meet people. And a lot of people at the University of Oregon like were from Oregon, so they knew each other. I'm like, I just got to go and meet people. So I joined. It was a great experience, but what I was going to say is it's tradition in the sororities that on your 21st birthday, your friends put together what's called a 21er book. And each person makes a page, and the goal is to take the book with you to the bars on your 21st birthday, and for every drink you drink, shot you take, like someone will buy you the shot or the drink, and then they fill out the page, and you're supposed to make it to 21. I think I got to about 14. And I felt fine the next day. I just wanted to go home at that point. Yeah. But I was never hungover in college, because in college, I did drink and I enjoyed it thoroughly. It was fun. And then, I stopped probably when I was 24, 25, got sick of the party scene. And then every time after that, when I would have, one drink, 2 drinks, I would just be, on the couch all day the next day. And that's just not fun.
Yeah,
So,
no, I can't imagine that it is.
yeah. This gum is starting to taste really bad. It's like spicy.
Yeah, it starts to burn your throat a little bit.
A little bit. So I'm going to go with the second piece of whatever this stuff Mary is.
Probably, yeah, I don't know what it is.
Something
She
fruity.
picks weird gum flavors.
I have to mix it up.
Yeah, I won't borrow gum from Mary.
Yeah, it's fruity. I'm not a fruity gum person.
Yeah, no. Sorry, I've got peppermint over there, but you've already
That's
ruined
okay.
that.
The best gum is Trident Minty Sweet Twist.
I'm a big fan of the 5 Cobalt.
Okay.
That's my favorite.
Well,
I buy that in bulk at Costco.
you're missing out. They don't sell the Trident in bulk at Costco. That was in my chronic gum chewing days,
Probably
which we
'cause
just talked about.
Nobody likes it that much.
Well, I don't know. Whatever.
So would you guys, anybody even remotely guess if I was in a fraternity or not?
I would say you were like the ultimate anti-frat guy.
Really?
Yeah.
You think so?
But you were in one?
I pledged. But I
Okay.
got halfway through and
Can I
quit.
pick which one?
Sure. If you get this, I'll be impressed.
Oh gosh. Was it can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
This was at University of where?
It was at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology.
They had fraternities?
Yep. All national fraternity, like all big national fraternities too.
Okay.
The only one that wasn't was the Dingers, the Triangles, which is a specific engineering fraternity.
Can you name the Greek alphabet?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to know that for physics, by the way, because
Oh, interesting.
most of the variables we use are Greek letters.
Okay. So was this a pretty, I guess, popular fraternity? Were you guys like well known on campus?
Yes, we were.
Sigma Chi,
Nope.
Theta Chi.
Nope. I'll give you a hint. They're not allowed to print their letters on anything non-permanent because they were a secret society for a long time.
Sigma Phi Epsilon.
No.
Can you give me the first letter?
Phi.
Phi Psi, Phi Kappa Alpha.
No. Would their nickname help?
Pikes?
They were usually called, no. That's Pi Kappa Alpha.
Okay.
No.
What was it?
They're usually called Fijis.
Oh, we had Fijis, but now I can't remember what they were.
That's because they're never allowed to write their Greek letters on anything non-permanent.
We had Fijis at Phi, Fiji, Phi Gamma. I don't know.
You got two of them, Phi Gamma Delta.
Phi Gamma Delta. Maybe we didn't have. I can't remember anyway. If
Yeah.
we did, they weren't the ones that we hung out with.
The Phi Gamma Delta fraternity at Rose was kind of the brainy jock fraternity.
Okay. So, do you want to guess what sorority I was in?
Oh, I don't even know sororities because that was an all guys college.
Oh, okay, that
so we
makes
didn't
sense.
actually have sororities there.
Okay. I was an Alpha Phi,
Okay.
if that makes sense. But we were the best ones on campus.
Of course you were.
Naturally.
You wouldn't join any other one. Right?
I wouldn't know. Okay, people are probably bored to tears with that conversation.
Yeah, but I'm curious, Mary. Were you in anything?
I did pledge when I was at San Jose State, but decided not to go through it.
What was it?
You know, it was so long ago, I can't remember.
So long ago?
It was an Asian fraternity, though. Sorority.
An Asian. Oh, I could see why you didn't. Well, I could see why you would have pledged the fraternity.
Sorry. Yeah.
Because Mary likes attention.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, she's a total attention whore.
No, I'm not.
I
Yes,
don't
you
buy
are.
that.
Yeah,
She's
well, it's totally true.
She's so reserved over there.
This is
But-
me now, though.
Well, yeah.
We gotta. Does Mary drink?
Mary
Oh, I
drinks.
used to be a drinker, yeah.
Really?
Big time. Yeah.
I've seen her get.
Funny girl.
I've seen her get tipsy.
What was your drink of choice?
Back in the day, I used to do a lot of Hennessy. Yeah.
Ghetto.
She's.
Wow.
Get outside.
She used to also be a racer.
Oh God, why?
What kind? What do you mean a racer? Like street
I don't
bikes?
talk about it.
Like a
Okay.
tuner. She was the type of girl that drive a tuner.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, I would have had no idea.
These days.
Oh, You know what? Maybe I can see that a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fun.
Thanks, Kiefer.
It's okay.
What else are we going to talk about?
I don't know. This is kind of fun.
It's not like a health and fitness show.
It's not.
We were talking about the laws of thermodynamics earlier, right? During the station identification break with no identification.
Yeah, we were talking about Gary Taubes and law of thermodynamics, how it's not accurate, I guess, would be the best word.
The first law of thermodynamics is absolutely not applicable to arguments of weight gain or weight loss. It's a very, very basic kind of concept, and it only applies strictly to isolated objects existing in vacuum that are isolated from their environment. So I don't know too many people that aren't in contact with their environment during the day. So that immediately makes the first law inapplicable to trying to discuss fluctuations in body weight. At a high level, obviously it works. But at a finite level, at the personal level, it actually is totally stupid. I mean, I'll just say it's totally stupid to bring it into an argument of weight gain or weight loss. It's the second law of thermodynamics that pretty much dictates how your body gains weight, loses weight, where it puts weight on, all those kind of different things. And
can you say what the second law is for those of us who don't know?
It's literally basically the law of efficiency.
Okay.
Everything runs at some efficiency, and nothing can ever run at perfect efficiency. So there's always energy lost that you can't account for and can't turn into work.
So that brings me to a question that I've had for a while. You always talk about carb backloading and how it makes your body inefficient.
Right.
And I don't understand that.
Okay, so if you're really efficient, so inefficiency means, in terms of the second law of thermodynamics, it means that there's a lot of energy being wasted that is not useful work.
Okay.
So, and that means, so you've got to realize the human body, not only does it produce heat, produces mechanical motion, but it also produces a lot of chemical energy. And that chemical energy is stored as fat, like a battery. Mm-hmm. Like you can think of the human body as a battery, and fat is the energy that's stored. So if your body's really inefficient, that means it's throwing off a lot of heat that can't be used for those other things. So if it's inefficient, then that means you're wasting a lot of calories, which means you could eat more and not gain weight.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, if you're highly efficient, then you can store a lot more of those calories. And it's just like your car. Mm-hmm. If you drive your car around town, it's inefficient. You burn through your gas tank way faster. But if you drive on the interstate, it's very efficient. You get a lot more mileage out of that tank of gas. Same tank of gas, totally different mileage.
Would it kind of be similar to like a Prius and an Escalade? Or is that too?
Well, you could compare people that way.
Okay.
You could call somebody a Prius, and that's somebody who's going to get fat very easily. You could call somebody an Escalade, that's somebody that's going to have a really hard time getting fat because they do anything, they burn off a lot of energy.
Damn those people.
Yeah, that's why the more muscle you have, the more you're like an Escalade. It's like a perfect correlation.
So when people talk about like getting really hot at night after a backload and they sweat a lot, is that what's going on?
Yeah.
And is that, because that doesn't happen for me. Like I don't feel it.
It's never happened to you?
No, not really. I mean, is it because I don't carry as much muscle, or what could it be? I'm not eating enough carbs?
Well, there's obviously a missing chemical reaction. Some people don't go through it ever. And I found that to be quite curious because there should be a significant upregulation of basically uncoupling protein 1 through 3, but primarily 1. And what that does is it actually gets in the way of your body trying to make ATP. And it gets in the middle of that process and turns off the energy that would have gone into ATP, throws it off as heat. So you lose all this heat to your surroundings. Your body can't replenish ATP, so it keeps trying to. So you just get warmer and warmer.
Mm-hmm. So when would this happen? Like, would you notice it during the backload or like when you're sleeping?
It usually, it varies. It depends on your carbs.
Because I guess I did wake up, like I woke up last night and feeling very hot. I wasn't like sweating, but I probably woke up at like 2 a.m. and was uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's going to depend on the carbs that you ingest and when you get that biggest spike.
Okay. Despite my husband blowing the fan in my face. He sleeps with no less than 2 fans every night.
2 fans?
Regardless of, yeah.
I like having the white noise on.
I think that's the white noise, but it drives me crazy. Anyway.
I can sleep without it, but I prefer. Actually, I have a hard time getting up in the morning if I have a white noise source.
Oh.
So if I want to make sure I wake up early every morning, then I don't use a fan.
Okay.
Interesting factoid.
Yes. So, but I also don't backload on like junky carbs. Could that be part of it?
Probably is part of it.
Yeah.
So here's something interesting. Here's where Gary Taubes and I have a huge disagreement. Is he thinks that carbs can never be used. And part of his rationale is, well, you take carbs out of the diet and you lose all these processes that can make you fat, can cause cancer, like I talked about on the last podcast, things like that. But he won't admit that there could be some potential benefit to insulin spikes. I mean, obviously, your body has the capacity to produce and dump a shit ton of insulin at any one time, and there has to be a reason for that. And it might be something that we consider a metabolic hack, but it does exist, and it's something we can utilize. And one thing that is completely misunderstood, and I say that, although that's not fair because we've only recently learned this. If you raise insulin levels to a certain threshold, then fat cells become primed to store more fat and burn less. They will absolutely do everything to store the fat that's in your system. So if you reach that threshold or you're under that threshold, you're actually telling fat cells to store as much fat as possible, and you're not telling it to go anywhere else. What's interesting is if you push insulin over a certain threshold, the opposite happens. Your fat cells actually get turned on to dump as much fat as possible. It's like the completely opposite scenario. So all this push towards low glycemic foods actually can be pushing people to become fat. Mm-hmm. It's not in any way useful. And I found some interesting studies when I was first looking into all this like 10 years ago. And I wasn't sure on the glycemic thing. And it was really interesting because diabetic researchers who explored it said it was totally useless for diabetics for blood sugar control. It's not a good measure at all. It's junk. But on top of that, on like longitudinal studies of people who ate traditionally very, very low glycemic foods without ever having an insulin spike, in about middle age, they start having uncontrollable fat gain. And it is not based on taking in more calories. Their calorie load does not affect them gaining weight. And that's interesting, and that's not true for populations that periodically introduce foods that have high insulin spikes. Mm-hmm. So I think Gary Taubes, trust me, I really like Gary. We have lunch. He's a great guy. And like the work he's done is phenomenal. But I think he's being a little myopic in not admitting that there might be some potential health benefit to somewhat regular insulin spikes.
I guess my question would be, what population is he directing his research towards? Is it more just like the general overweight sedentary population, or does he even agree? Okay.
That's correct, but that's what I wrote Carb Nite for.
True.
Even for that population, I think there is a distinct metabolic advantage to having those spikes in insulin levels periodically.
And that's for like hormone levels and all, like leptin and thyroid and all that.
Leptin, thyroid, getting your fat cells to release fat, getting tissue repair. Mm-hmm. I mean, all these things, insulin does one thing and it does one thing well, and it's make tissue grow. How you manipulate the insulin level determines what tissue grows, what tissue gets repaired, and then how often you introduce that insulin load also dictates those processes. So if you're using it once a week, which to me is kind of the extreme of how long you should go without carbs, without spiking insulin levels, there is nothing but upside. Mm-hmm. Metabolically, hormonally, even to the biomolecular processes that go on in cells, it is all advantage. And that's the argument that's really hard to push with somebody who has decided that all carbs are evil. There's no longer a place for them in the argument. And it's the same as somebody who's decided that you have to have carbs to live. Mm-hmm. There's no place in that argument to say, well, maybe you should go a day or two without carbs. They can't see eye to eye. And it's kind of like two religious extremists. No matter what, they cannot find common ground to agree on without realizing there's a lot of shades of gray in between. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the state of science is such that we can say a lot more than just black and white statements.
Mm-hmm. I guess it's the only thing that's been difficult for me to, I don't want to say accept, because I've gotten great results. I feel really good. I'm going to follow this protocol for the rest of my life. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just because I found something that works. But I think sometimes I'm like, well, how come then there are people, in the bodybuilding community who for however long, have been eating 6 small meals a day and have been eating carbs with every meal. Why can they still get lean? And
well, first of all, you've got to look at the population that you're talking about. Okay. That's a very limited set of people who can get that big, period.
Right.
And then let's say you make one small alteration to one gene, and I've talked about the myostatin gene a bunch.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And there's actually 2 genes that encode for the myostatin protein in humans. Well, if you get a flaw in just one of those genes, then people literally have an almost impossible time to gain body fat. It's very, very, very difficult for them. So you make that one small alteration, and all of a sudden you've got a guy who will get results not because of what they do, but in spite of what they do. They could do everything wrong and they will get results.
Yeah.
And you'll often see this. I can tell you right now that the diets that are laid out in the popular bodybuilding magazines are not how these guys eat.
Oh.
I know for a fact this is not how these guys eat.
So what's different about it?
Oh, I mean, take a typical American diet and add a bunch of protein shakes. You've got a lot of bodybuilders' diet, especially in the off season. And these guys still don't gain fat. Some do, but the majority still just don't really gain any fat. And then if you ever talk about pre-contest and we'll look at what these people do and try to compare that to normal people, you're being very naive because of the drug use that goes on. Even at the most amateur level, I mean, I'm waiting for people to start dropping dead on the men's physique stage.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah. Like I said, I've had people come to me for help, and they're taking a laundry list of drugs that is at the level of a pro bodybuilder who is 300 pounds ripped lean.
Oh, and these are just kind of your
and these
average...
are little tiny physique guys who are have hardly any muscle at all.
Oh, the physique guys who wear the board shorts?
Yes.
Oh my.
Yeah, and I don't want to help them because my first advice is you need to get off all that crap, and they don't want to hear that. They want to know what's the next drug I can use.
Well, and then once they do get off of it, are they kind of screwed? In terms of, or relating it to maybe figure competitors who take all the drugs, they do 2 hours, 3 hours of cardio.
Yeah, you need a big recovery process. If you go the traditional road of contest prep, you either need to continuously take drugs, or you need another anti-prep diet, essentially, to take care of the damage that you cause to your metabolism. You're looking at another 2 months.
And some of that is just, mental. It's hard to revert back to just a normal, healthy, whatever that is, diet. Right.
One client I had that she did well on stage, but I consider her one of my worst failures, and that's because she couldn't control her eating. So what she would do is she'd stick to the plan for 2 weeks, binge out of control for a week, and hide. And when I'd see her, she looked horrible. So then she would starve herself for a week. Literally just completely starve herself, get back to where she would be. And she kept yo-yoing during that process. And then, it came stage time, and my advice is don't get on stage. But instead, she starved herself, literally just didn't eat for days on end to get on stage. And the aftermath to that was horrible because she could not do any kind of metabolism fixing diet. She just couldn't stick to it.
Oh, it's too bad.
And I tried to work with her after that, and I could not. I couldn't figure out what the mental hurdles were I couldn't figure out what the mental hurdles were for her to keep her on track long enough to get healthy again after doing that to herself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is interesting. I mean, you're not a psychologist by any means, but it seems like to be a good coach, you need to be.
I was actually only a class off of having a minor in psychology.
You did tell me that. Yeah. You're such an overachiever. But still, I mean, even with all that knowledge, you couldn't help her. And you and I both know of a certain someone in the Bay Area, contest prep coach.
Yeah.
Who I have seen just ruin a couple friends of mine. And I don't think that they will ever be the same again because he puts everybody on the same diet. Like, he would give me the same diet that he gave my friend who weighed 150 pounds, you know?
Yeah.
Same cookie cutter diet, training program, 3 hours of cardio. I remember I was with one of these girls at the gym, and I had just got done training. We were talking, and she was saying how she had, eaten like an entire jar of peanut butter the night before. And she had just got done weight training too. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go. What are you up to for the rest of the night? She's like, oh, I have 3 hours of cardio to do. And I mean, she was like huge still, it's just,
he pretty much wrecks everybody.
And for what? To get up like in the Mr. San Francisco figure show?
Well, he's had a few people go pro.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the majority.
Yeah, he's waiting for that one person.
The diamond in the rough.
Yep, that goes pro in spite of his advice, not because of his advice. Because he's just symptomatic of a lot of people in the industry who
of course.
Know a particular diet, exercise program, and drug protocol that will get somebody to a certain shape every time. Well, the first time anyway. But they don't understand anything about the human body. If they did, they would know that a pre-contest diet, actually all the drugs you have to take to actually lose body fat on a pre-contest diet are only to fix the problems you're causing with that pre-contest diet.
Yeah.
It's asinine. And, a few people figured it out. And kudos to them, even without necessarily the hardcore science and research, like they figured it out. John Meadows, who, consults with Shelby a lot, which has helped Shelby out in some ways. And they probably helped each other, vice versa. But John Meadows has figured it out, and he has a contest prep diet that is not too far off of some of my experimental protocols that I don't put out there.
Oh.
And he does excellent. If you want to know what's kind of under wraps at DH, you can get a pretty good idea by going to John Meadows' website, Mountain Dog Diet, and checking out what he does for his contest prep, because he throws it all out there.
Really? I was on that site just last week, and I couldn't find anything. I just found
you got to pay.
You got to pay.
Yeah, it's a membership site.
Figure. I pay for enough.
Yeah, but, he puts out good content.
He does. He's a very... I really... I guess appreciate would be the right word. Respect him. Yeah. Definitely. He's got good, solid advice. His training programs are brutal.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
He's...
Because I worked with Shelby before I started doing... before I found DH, I was working with Shelby. And I know that some of the programs I was being given were Mountain Dog protocols. Yeah. And did I ever tell you about... I did tell you this about how he wrote that he wanted to knock my pecs into oblivion.
Right.
It's like, that's not what I'm going for, buddy, but okay.
Yeah, there's...
So anyway, but I mean, yeah, learned something new. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that world is crazy.
Crazy.
That's why I've kind of backed out of it some, is I don't want to be a part of it, I guess. For better or worse, I think it's the only way to say it. I don't like promoting those kind of ideologies, because if somebody can't get my time, then guess where they're going to go? Mm-hmm. They're going to go to one of those people, and they can't offer what I offer. I mean, obviously we're excluding John Meadows, but, you look at somebody like the person here in the Bay Area, they can't offer anything but that template. If they have to change it all, they can't. They're just so ignorant of the human body. They can't change even the slightest thing. Mm-hmm. That's why they hand it out over and over again.
Well, and I also think, they don't take the time to learn.
Oh no, he would never.
He has his.
He just wants to sit behind his counter in his supplement store and spray paint people, make money on the front end, back end, have tanning beds,
I did go to his tanning salon.
Really?
It's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, how can you screw up a tanning bed?
Well, that's true.
Yeah. I just don't want to give him kudos except where he deserves it.
Right.
Which
is where?
Yeah, actually, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I haven't figured it out.
His supplements are crap. Well, just the whole line.
Well, right.
Ugh, worst protein I've ever had.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and they sweeten everything with fructose.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you look at all their products, they sweeten all of them with fructose.
The only good thing that I'll say about his store is whenever you go in there, and I think this is recent, they have these like Slurpee machines.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've tried it, but this stuff is incredible. It's this like caffeine slushy, and oh man, it tastes so good. And he gives you just like free, like Slurpee sized, cups, I guess, of it.
He probably wouldn't give me a free cup.
Does he know you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, he knows who I am.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he, as soon as he found out, like, who I was and what I did, he just became the biggest prick in the world.
Of course
But
he
before
did.
that, he was super nice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's like, oh, somebody I can get something from, and then prick.
Yep, people will do that to you, huh?
Yeah, I don't understand, because I was not trying to encroach on his business at all.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to make people healthy and look the way they want. His job is to try to suck as much money out of people while destroying their metabolism.
He's done a good job of that.
Yeah, we're in totally different businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So
goal accomplished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's good at it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I sure hope that people see the light eventually and, go over to the other side to become, it's so easy. Like you've said, it's so easy. And, the time invested it's minimal, I guess. Food's good. You feel satisfied all the time. It doesn't feel like a diet.
It's just getting people over that hump.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the public side, you've got the U.S. government who's literally advertised for years that a low-fat diet is what's healthy, which we know is not true. We absolutely know that's not true. And no matter what anybody says about, well, we don't have long enough placebo-controlled double-blind studies, blah, 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 we know for a fact from the ground up at the cellular level all the way to the whole person and all the society's studies that you can come up with, we know that a low-fat diet is not healthy. Mm-hmm. Like, end of story. So you've got that push on one side. Then you come over to the bodybuilding fitness world where a lot of people look at these figures to emulate. Now you've got a whole nother world that's like, well, this is the only diet that works, which is still based off of the low-fat, several meals a day. And what you don't hear them talk about is all the supplements that they use to make those diet work when they need them to work. So it's just a disaster. And then there's this middle ground of people doing really interesting things, looking into the research and making recommendations that are on neither side of those veins. And it's hard for that crowd to push out unless their programs actually are good and work. Mm-hmm. And that's what I try to foster DH. That's what DH is about. It's like the best science possible to get the best results possible, instead of, well, if you do this, then we can give you these things to force it to work. And, well, don't come talk to us after the fact, because we can't deal with that. It's, it's a weird combination of performance and health, which isn't really out there too much that I know of.
I just started working with a new client probably like 3 weeks ago, and she's severely overweight. She's got a lot of weight to lose. And the thing I liked about her, she came in just, motivated to train, like wanted to. She's like, I want to lift heavy. She was just like all in. I'm like, well, we've also got to talk about the diet. And she understood, and she's like, seriously, I'll do whatever. And I didn't want to throw, too much at her too soon, just because I sometimes, I guess, worry that I'm going to tell these people, okay, you can't have any carbs until nighttime, and to go against everything that they've known and that they've been doing. I don't want them like running out the door right away. But fortunately, this lady she was on board. And so she was telling me that, in the morning she would have her coffee with a bagel and cream cheese. And she's like, yeah, I thought the cream cheese was like enough of a protein source. that it would kind of like make up for the carbs in the bagel. And I was like, well, not so much.
Oh my gosh.
But then she was saying, she crashed by 10 a.m.
Right.
And she would, have lunch and then come home ravenous and, just eat everything in sight, have a huge dinner. And I just made the simple switch. I was like, try to have your carbs in the evening for dinner with your family. Have some bacon and eggs for breakfast, which she started immediately. Was having like a salad for lunch, and she came back a couple days later and she's like, oh my gosh, like this is a miracle. Like I wasn't hungry for the first time, at 10 a.m. Like I had energy. I wasn't hungry. Like I felt great.
Right. You've like cured their cancer.
Pretty much. It feels
pretty
good.
much. Yeah. It feels like they have no hope. This is just the way life is.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly you've changed their life in a week.
It's huge.
Like, yeah, how many opportunities do you get like that?
Right. But it does take the person actually doing it to figure it out for themselves.
That's the hard part.
And that's the hard part. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I don't have a solution for that one.
I know. I'm trying to figure it out, but easier said than done. So.
Well, we've gone on for just about another hour.
Already?
Yeah.
I only asked one question. Oh, well.
Well, then, do you have a quick one? The problem is most people don't even make it to this portion of the show.
Really?
Yeah, they make it like 20 minutes in.
Why?
I don't know.
We're so much fun.
I have no idea. I think it's
ADD.
Yeah, I think it's just the nature of digital consumables.
I guess so.
Because, do you know how many people have bought my book? And I know they bought my book because I can go track their email address and make sure they have an order, who asked the dumbest question. So, are you saying that I can have my carb backloading in the morning? It's like, did you even read? I think in the first, like the end of the first chapter is here is the quick start guide, which is like 4 rules.
Well, and my biggest frustration is the people on the Facebook forum who just ask the most asinine questions. I'm sorry if I'm calling anybody out, but I'm going to do it. And I've got to the point where I can't even be nice about it anymore. I'm like someone who has the book said, what page is, this answer on? And I'm like, really? It's called the table of contents. It's right there, buddy.
Right. I made a real book.
Yeah.
That's one thing that differentiates it out there amongst all the crap that gets peddled on a regular basis is it's somebody's Word document that they threw it together. I tried to make a thorough book so that people could find whatever answers they wanted. And it sounds minor, but that's one of the things I insisted on for the upgrade is doing a real index.
Okay.
So that you could find the page number of exactly what it was that you wanted answers about.
Yeah, I guess that would be helpful. People appreciate that. But we are, I think as a society, we are just inherently lazy. And the internet may be to blame because you just type something into Google and it comes right up.
Yeah.
So, I do have one quick question. And this was for Peter.
Okay.
So I told Peter that I would help get this one out there. And his question, I think like many people who you would try to explain the DH protocol to, you really don't need vegetables. Fruit isn't a good source of carbohydrates, whatever.
Yeah, it just never, it doesn't fit anywhere really.
But Peter wants to know why. He's like, I just don't understand how an apple can be, bad for you almost, but eating a box of Fruity Pebbles is somehow okay. I think what he wants to know is what's going on the inside. And
well, that was actually, we just answered that question when we were talking about Gary Taubes and being totally anti-insulin and those insulin spikes. So if you look at an apple is very low glycemic. That's one reason it's recommended all the time. And if you're on a carb-based diet, there's evidence to support that you do need extra enzymatic activity in your food to help you process the food because your body's not used to all these carbs. Mm-hmm. So there is some place for it in a carb-based diet. But an apple traditionally is, like I said, very low glycemic and it's very high fructose. So what you're doing is putting a food in your body that raises insulin levels just enough to get fat.
Okay.
With no benefit whatsoever. Whereas the Fruity Pebbles, they're loaded with sugar and rice, which are excellent at really spiking your insulin levels and getting you over that threshold that doesn't make you fat anymore. It actually makes your fat cells release more fat.
Okay.
And it's they're both pure carbs, but, the Fruity Pebbles is great for getting a spike and you can get it without fat. So, carbs are very difficult to turn actually into fatty acids. They can help you store massive amounts of fat because they're triglycerides. They've got a glycerin backbone, which is made out of glucose. So the more carbs you have in this system, the more fat you can store. But they're traditionally very hard to turn into fat.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I read this somewhere.
I will.
I know you will. I read this somewhere, people are still afraid of eating a lot of fat, but they're worried about their cholesterol and all of that. But really what will damage your arteries and make you sick is really the insulin and not the fat, because where was I going with that?
Yeah, that's being interesting.
No, so insulin basically is what causes inflammation. Chronic insulin release. Do you know kind of what I'm saying?
I'm going to leave that one off on the side because I don't agree that chronic insulin release causes inflammation.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of research that insulin is potently anti-inflammatory.
Oh, interesting.
So if it does, then those mechanisms of exactly why in one situation that we know for sure it's anti-inflammatory, why in another situation it's inflammatory, and I might be able to come up with some reasonable explanations for why that is, but it would be all speculation. Chronic insulin release does create cholesterol particles that are very, very low density. They're puffy, which are extremely susceptible to oxidation. And once that oxidation occurs, then it can be very irritating for the lining of veins and arteries.
Okay.
Which causes a lot of problems. So the insulin itself, I have a hard time saying it's the culprit. The processes that it causes to have chronically elevated insulin levels, like with low glycemic foods.
And I think that's where
right.
That's what I was going with. It's
that is definitely problematic.
Okay, so why eating oatmeal for breakfast and apple for lunch, rather than
that's why
bacon and eggs.
What's funny is the first INSEP diet. So we have the National Cholesterol Education Program. Their first version of their diet to lower cholesterol levels was very low fat, very high carbohydrate. And what they found after 5 years of implementing this diet on people, unfortunately, like real people out in the world, cholesterol levels got worse. And so did arterial damage. So they actually discovered, and they've got really good data from INSEP 1, that a low-fat diet is very destructive to your arteries. Very destructive. They've got concrete data on that. So they went to INSEP 2, which actually didn't do much better because they still try to keep it very low fat. We're now on INSEP 3, which is basically a Mediterranean diet. And, for better or worse, it will work. The problem is they're willing to bastardize those guidelines of the Mediterranean diet to make them fit with what we have mainly available for carbohydrate sources here, which is, wheat, corn, even high fructose corn syrup. They'll allow those things as long as the glycemic index is low enough. So they try to play that card, which, again, like we talked about, is total junk.
So, and then last thing about the glycemic index, because I do remember you putting up, I think, a podcast or one of the little videos about why that's bunk and all of that. So if someone is, carb backloading, doing their carb night, how can you determine what is a good carb to eat? Can you go somewhere and look at the glycemic index and say... Luckily for glycemic index, there's charts all over the internet for that one. Can you give a specific number that people, if they want to go and look it up, be over X amount?
The insulin index is easier to give a distinct number for. The problem is those charts are really hard to find. Because what you want is... For insulin index, what you want is something over in the units that they give, which... I believe are micromoles per decigram or something. I don't even remember now. But in those units, you want something, what you're hoping for is something 100 or higher.
Okay.
Because at the 100 level, at the 100 threshold is what you need to get over to get fat cells to release fat instead of store them. The unfortunate thing is, and why it's been concluded to be junk, especially for diabetics, is glycemic index doesn't always track appropriately with insulin index. For example, adding, I think it's milk to a meal should technically, because it has a lower glycemic index than, say, cereal, adding it to cereal should decrease the insulin load because the overall glycemic index of the meal is lower. It actually increases insulin output. So if you want to get more out of your cereal, add milk to it. You actually get a bigger insulin bump. That's great, but the glycemic index actually went down.
Okay.
As far as glycemic index numbers, you're looking for anything at the level of white bread or higher, which is not hard to find. Fruity Pebbles is right up there.
What about for those of us who don't want to eat Fruity Pebbles?
Well, then your options are more limited. You can do it. But if you want to use whole foods, you're going to be limited. Well, not limited. There's a wide variety of white waxy potatoes. So for anything that grows from the ground that's tuberous or has a lot of starch, the easiest way to gauge its glycemic index and its insulin index, what it's going to do to you, is how waxy it is. So a russet potato is actually not a very waxy textured potato, but red potatoes are. Red potatoes have a higher insulin index than russet potatoes. So that's the way to choose them. Purple potatoes are even waxier, and that's because the ratio of amylose to amylopectin. So, that's one way to just tell with your food what the difference is.
Okay. Sweet potatoes are good.
Sweet potatoes are okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I would go for the red new potatoes with butter.
I hate red potatoes.
The fat helps to increase insulin output, but it'll be a little bit delayed.
Okay.
You don't like red potatoes?
I don't like red potatoes.
How about
Never
purple
have.
potatoes?
Well, no, not really. I'm not a real big fan of potatoes, actually. I love sweet potatoes, and when I was in Hawaii, we had these purple sweet potatoes at the luau. Oh, my gosh.
Were they sweet potatoes or yams?
I think they were sweet potatoes.
Oh.
Yeah, they were incredible. They may have been soaked in sugar, who knows.
Yeah, that's probably why
that's probably why.
So that's what you can do too. If you don't mind the sweet all the time, which
I love it.
I'm not I like sweet, but I also like savory. So I'd be more apt to make mashed potatoes out of red potatoes.
Okay.
And add some butter or something like that, or coconut oil if you really want that. If you want that spike faster.
Coconut oil. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That sounds good. Well, I guess that wraps it up.
All right. Sounds good to me. This is Kiefer with BioJacked Radio from DangerouslyHardcore.com, and special guest
Marci Nevin.
And this time she's decided not to be schizophrenic.
Marci Nevin Curtis.
There we go. All right.
See ya.
Bye.